May 6, 2010, 2:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Accenture, one of the largest consulting firms on the planet, had been trading at $41 a share. At 2:47 and 53 seconds, 100 shares changed hands at a new price. 1 penny. Across the market, $1 trillion in value vanished. The Dow Jones fell 998 points in minutes. Procter Gamble dropped 37%. Sotheby's briefly traded above $100,000 a share. 8 companies in the S&P 500 were worth a penny. 20 minutes later, almost all of it came back. The Dow closed down 347 points. A bad day, but only a bad day. For 20 minutes though, the entire American stock market had gone insane, and nobody could explain why. It took regulators 5 months to publish a report, 5 more years to make an arrest. And when they finally found someone to blame, he was sitting in his childhood bedroom in suburban London, eating McDonald's with discount coupons. On April 27th, Standard & Poor's had downgraded Greece's bonds to junk status. Riots broke out in Athens. Portugal followed. The euro was falling against the dollar and the yen simultaneously. American markets opened nervous on May 6th. By 1 p.m., the S&P 500 was already down roughly 2.5%, and the VIX, the market's fear index, had surged more than 20%. Traders were selling, but in an orderly way. Elevated volume, steady hands, a jittery day, nothing more. So the conditions were set. The European debt crisis was the dry kindling. What happened next was the match. But to understand the match, you need to understand the machine it was thrown into. By 2010, the most important financial instrument in the American stock market was a futures contract called the E-mini S and P500, traded electronically on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. One contract was worth 50 times the S&P 500 index, roughly $55,000 at the time, and institutions used it to hedge trillions in equity exposure. E-minis mattered because they set the price for everything else. When E-mini futures dropped, arbitrage traders sold stocks to match. When stocks dropped, more arbitrage traders sold futures. A feedback loop connecting two markets, running at the speed of light with no damper between them. In a bedroom in Hounslow, a suburb of West London, a 31-year-old man was watching this same order book on the same screens as every institutional trader in Chicago. He had his own algorithm running. We'll come back to him. At 2:32 p.m., a mutual fund company in Overland Park, Kansas, pressed a button. The SEC would later call them, quote, a large fundamental trader. They were Waddell & Reed Financial, and they wanted to sell 75,000 E-mini contracts, approximately $4.1 billion worth, a hedge against an existing stock portfolio. Legitimate strategy, ordinary size for an institutional trade. But the algorithm they used to execute it had a problem. It had one instruction: sell at a rate equal to 9% of the previous minute's trading volume. That was it. The algorithm had no price floor, no time limit, and no awareness of what its selling was doing to the market around it. In a normal market, a trade this size would take 5 hours. The algorithm finished in 20 minutes. Because as prices fell and traders fled, volume thinned, but 9% of a smaller number is still a sell order. So the algorithm kept selling, and the fewer buyers there were, the harder each sale hit. A feedback loop with no off switch. Waddell & Reed later called themselves a, quote, bona fide hedger. They were right. The trade was legal, the strategy was standard, but the algorithm did not care what its selling was doing to the market, and nobody had told it to. Meanwhile, across the country, millions of ordinary brokerage accounts sat open. Many of them held stop-loss orders, automatic triggers that sell a stock if it drops below a set price. Financial advisors recommended them. Brokers marketed them as protection. On a normal day, they were. By 2010, between 50 and 70% of all equity trading in the United States was done by high-frequency trading firms. These were algorithms that bought and sold thousands of times per second, profiting from price differences too small for humans to see. They provided most of the market's liquidity. Buy orders sat in the order book, ready to absorb selling pressure. But these firms had no obligation to stay. Before electronic trading, the New York Stock Exchange had human specialists. Floor traders assigned to specific stocks required by exchange rules to maintain orderly markets. When selling overwhelmed buying, specialists had to step in, buy when nobody else would, absorb the loss, and keep the price from falling off a cliff. It was slower and more expensive. But somebody was always there. The new system was faster, cheaper, and better in every measurable way. Except one. When things went wrong, the machines could leave. And on May 6th at 2:41 p.m. they did. Some stayed, briefly, but researchers later found they were passing contracts back and forth like a game of hot potato, buying a contract, holding it for a fraction of a second, selling it to another high-frequency firm, which held it for a fraction of a second and sold it again. In 14 seconds between 2:45 and 13 seconds and 2:45 and 27 seconds, these firms generated 27,000 contracts of trading volume. That was 49% of all trades in that window. Their net position change? 200 contracts, 27,000 trades, and nothing moved. But the volume made the sell-off look even worse to every other algorithm watching the tape, so they sold harder. By 2:47 p.m., the legitimate buy orders were gone. All that remained were stub quotes, placeholder bids at absurd prices that market makers were required to post. Bids at 1 cent. Asks at $100,000. Regulatory paperwork. Numbers that nobody expected to execute, and when incoming sell orders found no real buyers, they executed against the paperwork. That is how Accenture traded at 1 penny. The real buyers had vanished. The only bid left was a number nobody meant. At 2:47 p.m., the Dow hit its intraday low, down 998 points, 9.2% from the open, $1 trillion gone. But 2 minutes earlier, at 2:45 and 28 seconds p.m., one thing had worked. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange had a built-in safeguard called Stop Logic functionality. When the E-mini's rate of decline exceeded a preset threshold, the system automatically paused trading, not for minutes, not for hours, for 5 seconds. 5 seconds. In that window, the order book partially rebuilt. Human traders had a moment to look at prices and realize they made no sense. Buy orders appeared. When trading resumed at 2:45 and 33 seconds, the bleeding stopped. Most stocks had reverted to actual value by 3 o'clock p.m. By 3:08, the Dow had recovered most of the 600-point plunge. The market closed down 347 points, a terrible day. But the collapse had reversed itself. 5 seconds of nothing saved the entire market. And it was the only engineered safeguard that fired. For individual stocks, there were no circuit breakers. A stock could fall from $41 to 1 penny, and nothing in the system would pause the trade, question the price, or protect the person on the other side. The safety net covered futures. Stocks were on their own. The crash was over. The cleanup was not. After the close, the exchanges had a problem. 20,800 trades across 286 securities had executed at prices so far from reality that honoring them would mean transferring billions of dollars based on a 20-minute malfunction. They drew a line. Any trade executed between 2:40 and 3 o'clock p.m. at a price more than 60% away from its value at 2:40 was declared, quote, clearly erroneous and cancelled. The 60% number was not a regulation. It was an ad hoc decision made that evening. If your stock dropped 59%, the trade stood. If it dropped 61%, you got a do-over. The list of winners and losers was never published. Procter Gamble had fallen from $62 to $39.37, a 37% drop, under the 60% line. Those trades stood, and if you had a stop-loss order on P&G, the tool marketed to retail investors as protection against large drops, your shares sold at the bottom. P&G recovered to $60 within minutes. Your loss was permanent. Stop-loss orders were supposed to limit damage. On May 6th, they caused it. As prices fell, stop losses triggered and converted to market orders, which found no real buyers and executed at whatever price was left, which drove prices down further, which triggered more stop losses. The safety mechanism became the accelerant. Nobody offered recourse. The 60% threshold was retroactive, arbitrary, and for anyone who sold within that band, final. The regulators had a different problem. They needed to explain how this had happened. The SEC and FTC published their report in September 2010. They blamed Waddell and Reed's algorithm. Case closed, they said. But 5 years later, on April 21, 2015, British police arrived at a semi-detached house in Hounslow, a suburb in West London near Heathrow Airport. They arrested Nuvinda Singh Surao. Nuvinda grew up in that house. His father ran a corner shop, his mother worked part-time jobs, and he studied computer science at Brunel University, graduating in 2001. He found his way to Futex, a London trading arcade where traders used the firm's capital in exchange for half the profits. He was good, exceptionally good, with a gift for reading patterns in the order book that other traders missed. Sometimes he made £500,000 in a single day. But he grew tired of splitting his profits, so he left. In 2008, he purchased a seat on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, giving him direct access to the E-mini market, and he began trading from his childhood bedroom. What Surao did was called spoofing. Around June 2009, he modified an off-the-shelf trading platform to build what he called Nav Trader. The system placed 4 to 6 large sell orders into the E-mini order book, stacked one price level apart, always 3 to 4 levels away from the best price, close enough for other traders to see, far enough to avoid actually executing. Other algorithms saw the wall of sell orders and assumed a massive seller was about to dump, so they lowered their bids. Prices dipped. Surao bought at the dip, then he cancelled the fake orders. Prices recovered. He sold. The whole cycle took seconds, and 99% of his spoofing orders were cancelled before they could execute. On May 6, 2010, Surao ran the algorithm continuously for over 2 hours before the crash. He placed approximately $200 million in sell orders that he never intended to fill. Those orders were modified or replaced 19,000 times. At points during the afternoon, his orders represented 20 to 29% of all sell-side activity in the E-mini market. The CME had noticed. More than a year before the crash, they flagged Surao's pattern of placing and cancelling orders. On the day of the crash itself, they warned him that orders must be placed in, quote, good faith. They never took disciplinary action. They never followed up. 6 years and 800 trading days passed before anyone did. Surao's profit on May 6 was approximately $879,000. Over his career from 2009 to 2014, US authorities estimated he earned around $40 million, possibly as much as $70 million. And then comes the part that is difficult to believe. He lost almost all of it. Serrao invested his fortune in a tax avoidance scheme that turned out to be a front for an investment fraud. Over £40 million vanished. A man who had manipulated some of the most sophisticated financial markets on the planet got scammed out of nearly everything he earned. Because Serrao never cared about money, he lived in the same small bedroom. His most expensive purchase was a used Volkswagen that cost under £8,000. Most days he ate at McDonald's with discount coupons and played video games for hours. An autism specialist who later evaluated him, Simon Baron Cohen, concluded that Serrao, quote, regarded trading as a video game in which the object was to compile points, not money. The 22-count indictment carried a combined maximum sentence of 380 years. In November 2016, Serrao pleaded guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of spoofing. Then he cooperated extensively. His ability to read trading patterns, the same skill that made him a manipulator, helped the FBI and DOJ catch other market cheats. Prosecutors called his cooperation, quote, extraordinarily timely, complete, truthful, and helpful. On January 28, 2020, Judge Virginia Kendall sentenced him, time served plus 1 year of home confinement, at his parents' house, in Hounslow, in the same bedroom where he did it all. So, who caused the flash crash? The honest answer is that nobody caused it, because everybody caused it. The flash crash was 6 failures happening simultaneously in a system where nobody was responsible for the whole. An algorithm that sold $4.1 billion of futures with no price floor. A spoofing operation that created $200 million of phantom selling pressure. Market makers that provided 70% of trading volume but could vanish in milliseconds. Stub quotes that executed real trades at fake prices. Arbitrage, linkages that transmitted a future's crash into equities instantaneously, and zero circuit breakers for individual stocks. Danny Riley, a veteran floor trader who had seen every crash since 1987, put it simply, quote, there are too many players out there to pin this on one guy. What it came down to was they needed somebody. In structural engineering, this is called a system with no redundancy, a bridge with one load path. If any single element fails, the whole structure comes down. The American stock market in 2010 was that bridge, fast, efficient, cheap to operate, and one bad algorithm away from $1 trillion failure. After the crash, the rules changed. Within a month, the SEC adopted single stock circuit breakers. A 10% move in 5 minutes triggers a 5-minute halt. By 2012, those evolved into the limit up, limit down mechanism, which sets price bands around each stock and halts trading when breached. The market-wide circuit breakers were recalibrated, stub quotes were banned, and the Dodd-Frank Act made spoofing a federal crime. That provision was used to prosecute Serrao. But the fundamental tension remains. Electronic market makers still have no affirmative obligation to maintain orderly markets. They can still leave. In August 2015, another flash crash demonstrated the reforms were incomplete. ETF prices unhinged from their underlying values. Circuit breakers fired over 1,000 times in one morning. We replaced humans with machines. The machines were faster and cheaper. But the humans had a duty to stay. The machines do not. And when the machines leave, the market is a room full of sell orders and nobody willing to buy. The entire crash lasted 36 minutes. The worst of it, the 600-point plunge, took 5 minutes. And the thing that stopped it was a 5-second pause. A circuit breaker built into one exchange for one instrument that gave human beings just enough time to realize the prices on their screens were not real. One safeguard worked. Everything else failed. The technology performed exactly as designed. Nobody had designed it to care about what happened when everything went wrong at once. Serrao helped the government catch other cheaters. He went back to his bedroom. The prosecutors who sent him there said his crimes were, quote, entirely unmotivated by greed. Points, not money. A man in a bedroom playing a game nobody realized was connected to the retirement accounts of 100 million Americans. An algorithm in Kansas dumping $4 billion into a market with no floor, and a system so fast, so efficient, so perfectly optimized that it forgot to include an obligation for anyone to stay. The stock market is infrastructure. We treat it like software. Software can crash and reboot. Infrastructure cannot. When a bridge falls, people die. When a market falls, life savings disappear. And the question the flash crash asked and never answered is, who is obligated to hold the bridge up when the load gets heavy? On May 6, 2010, the answer was nobody. For 5 seconds, a machine in Chicago disagreed. That was enough. Barely.